I'm Dr. Carrie Horn, author of A Soul Aligned, How God Heals His Creations, and Heart Known Series Workbook, a practical application workbook for biblical healing. In this video, I want to talk with you about something that God keeps putting on my heart, and that is that we have lost attunement to His voice. God established certain ways of communicating with His people, with His creations. He does this through many things. He does it through, one of the reasons I love having a garden is because I get to understand at an experiential level what God is talking about in the Bible when He's talking through gardening, through the earth that He created. Another reason why I like to garden is because, and this is going to sound a little funny, but it's one way in which I am setting aside a designated place for God to continually speak through me. And I know that might sound a little funny. God can speak through anything, but if I'm paying attention to how He's speaking through my garden, or how He's speaking through my feelings, or my journaling, or my dreams, and things like that, it's going to reduce the amount of grief that I actually have to go through in order to hear Him. And that should be a motivator to us, that if we're listening to Him on a regular basis and we're looking for Him everywhere, the amount of grief that we're going to have to experience is going to be greatly reduced. When God first started really speaking to me and increasing His voice in me, He had brought me to the brink of physical death. I was in a constant fast, so to speak, because you know how I feel about fasting. Fasting is really supposed to be about us returning to God, but and it's also to get our flesh disciplined, our physical flesh disciplined. So that part was being fulfilled. I wasn't able to eat anything. I was in starvation mode, and He began talking with me. That was a lot of grief that God had to bring me to in order for me to actually attune myself to His voice. One of the things that I'm often asked when I'm doing workshops or when I'm working with a person and explaining to them how it is that we listen to God, how we attune ourselves, how we do the work that is outlined in Heart Known Series and A Soul Aligned. And one of the things that they say to me is, how did you think of this? How did you, it's like, not my teaching. This is God's teaching. And people think that it's so revolutionary or it's so new and they've never heard of doing anything like this. But this is what people did. This is how people understood and heard God in biblical times. Do you remember when God first started talking to Jeremiah and was teaching him that he was a prophet that God had called? And He said, "What do you see, Jeremiah?" And Jeremiah answered, "Figs. The good ones are very good, but the bad ones are so bad that they can't be eaten." And then God said, "Like these good figs, I regard as good exiles from Judah, whom I sent away from this place to the land of the Babylonians. My eyes will watch over them for their good, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not uproot them. I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord. They will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me with all their heart. But like the bad figs, which are so bad they cannot be eaten, says the Lord, so will I deal with Zedekiah, king of Judah, his officials, and the survivors from Jerusalem, whether they remain in this land or live in Egypt. I will make them abhorrent and an offense to all the kingdoms of the earth, a reproach and a byword, a curse and an object of ridicule, wherever I banish them. I will send the sword, famine, and plague against them until they are destroyed from the land I gave to them and their ancestors." And I told you in a video yesterday that God was speaking to me through my fig tree and my feelings about the fig tree, that it was just taking up space, that it was producing nothing good, that I could have planted any tree in that spot, but this tree was not producing anything good. It was loaded down with fruit, but none of the fruit was useful. I've told you that before I knew the word of God, but He had started speaking to me, how He talked with me about my role in the body of Christ. And I was sitting in my backyard looking at my lemon tree, and my lemon tree has kind of this cool feature where it's got these different trunks that are kind of winding together. And He spoke to me through the lemon tree, and He said, you're just one part of this. And he was humbling me and letting me know that I was part of something bigger. It wasn't just about me and what he was doing in me for me. He was humbling me, but he was also explaining to me, you're part of something big. I've told you that I have an affliction or a thorn that God uses. It's a cough, and that God slows me down through that cough. I can't speak fast. I can't run with my own message. I have to slow down, and he keeps me in step with him and attuned to his spirit. So he teaches me through that affliction. I've told you that about 4 days ago, God gave me COVID, but he's given me such mild symptoms. It's not that he is shaking me up. He's keeping me close to him, and he's keeping me low and isolated and in him, because he has been sharing very important messages with me to share with you. And I share with you all throughout a Soul Aligned and Heart Known series why it is important for us to understand our design in order to heal and in order to receive his ministry. We can't heal if we don't receive his ministry. I've shared with you that healing is synonymous with salvation, that he has designed our minds, our bodies, our soul to heal as we heal in him. So it's not that my ideas are so revolutionary, or the way that God put this program together in me is of me or of my revolutionary carnality. This is God's brilliance in his design. This is him. This is his teaching, not mine. And that's why every single thing that I do, I tell you, and here's where this is in the Bible, and here's where this is in the Bible. That's part of the reason that a Soul Aligned is so massive, is because I'm constantly substantiating with the only truth there is. Someone contacted me the other day and wanted to know about their lampstand, and had shared with me, I know that they've been on their healing journey and begun reading the books, and they've heard me talk in videos about how God will minister to you and then he will minister through you. That we don't have a ministry of our own. It's not by our own good ideas or revolutionary ideas. If we want to serve God, he's the one who has to tell us what our lampstand is. What is the purpose for which he set us apart? And the way that he reveals that to us is through our healing process. I want you to know that. It's not that he will begin healing you and then he's going to activate you right away. That's not how it works. It takes some time for him to build that. But you will know. You will know that he's building it. And then you're going to hit a point where you think you're ready, but God tells you otherwise. I laugh at myself all the time on these videos about how when he first started talking to me, how I was saying, use me, use me. And here I thought he was going to use my wise in my own eyes education, worldly education, and brilliant ideas, right? But he had no use for any of that. The only thing that God has use for is our testimony that only he's building in us, our submission, our obedience, and our reliance. That's the only way to be activated. And you're not going to miss it. You're not going to miss it if you know that God is building you, that you've been set apart for a purpose. If you know and you are attuned to God's Spirit and he is healing you, you're not going to miss it. I promise you. I just want you to understand, like I said in the video yesterday, that God has indeed set you apart for a purpose. So don't be like the rest of the world that goes to therapy and thinks that it's all about them and it's all about their 40-year healing journey. That's not how it works. It isn't how it works. God does not want you to be self-focused. He wants to prove himself to you for his glory so that you know that he's real and you will trust and obey what he has said, and you will follow his Spirit wherever he goes. You will follow his Spirit wherever he goes. And a lot of times what I see people doing, especially when I first start working with them, is they treat God like he's in their dog carrier or something, like they're taking him along for the ride. That's not how it works. We have to change our perspective about how we're living. We have to be attuned to him. He's the one who tells us how we're going to live each day. God is speaking. He's speaking in everything. In the books that I have written, in Heart Known series in particular, because it's a practical application workbook for biblical healing, it teaches you how to understand your dreams, how to understand the different ways that God is speaking to you, and it teaches you how to begin to attune yourself and clear away all of the garbage that you have been distracting yourself with, all of the chatter, all of the compulsion, and how to understand it so that you can understand how to heal. The only thing that is of me, or that I can claim kinda in those books, is my testimony. But even that I had to receive from God. He had to deal with me on the things that I didn't know. Other than my testimony, which is powerful, God uses it. He testifies to it. So I'm not limiting my testimony. I'm just saying that it's not of me. It's not my teaching. It's what God is using to demonstrate how to live according to his word, how to heal according to his word. If you want to learn how to attune yourself, I want to teach you. And I have written 2 books to teach you. I recommend starting with Heart Known series so that God can prove it to you, so that you can learn different activities to do where God is going to speak into it and he's going to prove to you that this works, that what he has said works. And as you heal, he will activate the testimony that he's been building in you. And eventually he's going to place his light on your lampstand, and you will be used for the purpose for which he set you apart. Now, what I want to say about that as well is that it requires us to remain attuned to God's Spirit. There's no way that we can operate apart from God, apart from the vine. He won't bear fruit through it, no matter how revolutionary we think that our ideas are. So please understand the importance of attunement to God's Spirit. In biblical times, people were attuned to him all the time. That's how he designed us, to be attuned to him all the time. And I got to tell you that one of the most disappointing things for me when I start working with people is that they cannot find time for God. We're lucky if they can find 3 slots for him in an entire week. And that, quite frankly, is unacceptable. It's not good. That is not good. We're supposed to be attuned to him all day long. We're never supposed to be separated from his Spirit. But unfortunately, due to the increase in wickedness in the world, due to the increase in the devil's schemes of distraction and all of the ways that we have compromised our integrity and our conscience in order to do business in this world or live in this world, we can't do that and still be connected to God's Spirit, right? So we end up becoming these compartmentalized people where we think that we're separating from him and then going back to him. And he says that cannot be. We have to be single-minded. We can't be friends with the world and friends with him. We can't continue in disciplines and fields and careers that are in opposition to him. We just can't do that and still be in him. Now, I've been telling you over a period of weeks that things are building up, that, God activated his witnesses on Pentecost. We're 5 weeks into that people are not listening, they're not returning, and that something is coming. What judgment is coming, for sure. God's trumpets are coming, and I've explained to you that the reason why God's trumpets are coming is because he gives us an opportunity to listen to his prophets and his servants. And when we don't do it, he begins to send judgment. He doesn't send grief willingly, but he's about to send some grief because people don't seem to care. They don't care. They're not returning. They're not attuning. They don't care. They don't want to have to give up the world for Christ. So he is about to bring them low into position to receive him. And then understand that if they don't return then, they're going to be here for the reign of the Antichrist and the continued trumpets that will blow, the next fifth and sixth trumpets after the witnesses have died. And if they still don't return, they'll be here for the seventh trumpet, which will begin condemnation. So you see that this is God's pattern. This is how things go. He increases his voice. He increases the consequences, and he hands us over to the spirit we've chosen. But look at everything he will have done before he does that. Before he hands us over to the Antichrist spirit, he will have sent his prophets, whom we will have killed. He will have blown trumpets and begun to harm our bodies and our land. And people still will not return. And so then they get handed over to the spirit they've chosen. And 2 more trumpets will blow before the final trumpet, the seventh trumpet, at which time those who have actually received him and fulfilled their covenant with him will be resurrected and be with him forever. And those who have not will remain on the earth for his great wrath. So please understand how important this is. You cannot receive God's ministry if you're not attuned to his spirit. And you cannot be attuned to his spirit if you keep separating from him to go to the world. He is in everything. He's speaking through everything. I teach you how in Heart Known series. That is what that book is about. I teach you how to listen to your feelings, to understand the metaphors or parables that he is speaking into in your body, into circumstances, in your dreams, how to receive that, how to slow down, how to get still, how to resolve the issues that are standing between you and God. You being able to bring yourself correctly to him. The first thing that has to happen is a fast. That's the first thing that has to happen. So I want to encourage you, because things are increasing, and I believe that something is going to happen very soon. I, talked on a previous video that God kept pressing on me the 10th of the 10th month. And remember that I've taught you in previous videos, God has 2 calendars. He has his creation calendar and his Exodus calendar. Tomorrow is the 10th of the 10th month on his creation calendar. And the 10th of the 10th month on the creation calendar, as well as the Exodus calendar, was the only date that God said in the Bible, record this date, because the king of Babylon is going to lay siege to Jerusalem. It's the only date in the entire Bible that he says that. So he keeps pressing it on me. I don't like to talk about dates. So I'm a little uncomfortable with it, but the fact that he's pressing it on me, I'm talking about it. And one thing that I want to tell you about that is that I'm seeing that there are certain things that are going on around. First of all, him bringing me into having COVID and talking with me in an intimate way like this, in a more serious and isolated and intimate way. I'm seeing that he has done that with a couple of people who I know, given them COVID recently to isolate them. Symptoms, not bad. It's not that he's brought judgment on them. He's just bringing them in to speak with them. I have talked with you about how people have been falling, and were given a chance through God's prophets and servants to pick up their cross, receive his ministry, be activated for the purpose that he set them apart for. But unfortunately, people say that they want it. They say they want to be used by him, but they don't want everything else that goes along with it. They don't want to suffer, quite frankly. They don't want to have to trust. And all of these things are required. And unfortunately, God says if I had done this with a foreigner, they would have accepted it long ago. But my people, who I established and taught and blessed, refuse to accept it. They're obstinate and stiff-necked. And that's the reason he's going to bring judgment. Another thing that I've been seeing, and you may have noticed this as well, but not recognized it for what it is. So pay attention. People are getting weird again, aren't they? They're starting to get weird. When COVID came up, when COVID happened, you saw that spirit of Satan floundering and getting freaked out. What is this? What's going on, right? And I would get calls from people saying, I need you to see my kid. They're freaking out because of COVID. I have such and such mental disorder because of COVID. Everything was because of COVID. But you need to understand that it's not because of COVID. It's because the devil knows his time is short. He's freaking out because he doesn't have the Spirit of God. He doesn't know what's going on. He only can recognize the times. So if you have people in the world who are inhabited by a spirit, what do you think is going to happen inside of them? They're going to start freaking out because the spirit inside of them is freaking out. So you're going to see this. Pay attention. You're going to see it in people and you're going to see it in systems. Don't let it affect you. Understand it for what it is. Dust your feet and understand that you have more power in you than the devil could ever have. But you have to choose that power. You have to attune yourself to his spirit. You have to resist the devil and he will flee. Don't let anyone freak you out. There's no system that's over you that can mess with you. So I want to encourage you this weekend, this Sabbath that we're entering into right now, tonight, Friday night to Saturday night. Enter into Sabbath, do a little fast, return to God. Circumcise from the flesh, sinful flesh, discipline the physical flesh. Let God deal with you and return to him. Your fast, I want to tell you, is absolutely worthless if all you're doing is drinking water and not eating. It's worthless. You got to rend your heart to God. That's the point of a fast. The other thing I want to tell you is don't pray with many words. I know people who have so-called prayer ministries who are praying all day long and not hearing from God. And when they're asked, what's God doing in you? What's he saying? They say, I'm doing most of the talking. I want you to understand something very clearly. If you're doing most of the talking, you're not being used by God. You are not connected to his spirit. You cannot be used by him. He doesn't need you. You need him. He wants you. But the only way that you can be in him is if you are submitting yourself to him and if you're listening to him. No different from anyone who started a church and they're up there talking all this good stuff on Sunday, no less, not Sabbath, but on Sunday, teaching others with many words, but they have no healing. And it's evident that they have no healing. And this is the very reason why God said no one can manage his church if they're not managing their own household. It's not ministry first, then God second. It's God first, then ministry second. Because if you don't have a relationship with God and he's not ministering to you, he will not minister through you. You have no power in and of yourself. The only power that you have is the power of God when you are connected to God, when you are connected to the vine. If you're not hearing from God, there's a problem. And that is where you have to begin. You have to return to him, and then he will return to you. You have to stay in him, and then he will stay with you. So please don't get freaked out about what's going on around. It's going to get bad. There's going to come a time, like I said in the other video, that you're going to look outside your window and all that greenery that you see right now, the earth is going to be harmed. The spirit or spirits in people are going to freak out. The spirit or spirits in systems is going to freak out. But you got to be connected to the only power there is. So if he's afflicting you right now, or he's giving you circumstances and situations to bring you into him, return to him and he will give you peace. Don't start scrambling. Don't let the devil start compelling you to go and try to control situations or anything else, or to ruminate and obsess on what you need to do. There's nothing you need to do but return to God. He will instruct you. He will tell you what to do. If he's given you some sort of an illness, if he's given you COVID, just return. That's the remedy every time. Return to me and I will heal you. Return to me and I will restore you. Return to me and I will protect you. I will conform all things for the good of those who love me. Trust and believe in the promises of God. And please, for your own sanity and your own healing, do something to understand the design that God has given you so that you know how to heal, so that you know what to do. I've told you that if you follow the links on my channel for the books, there is a good portion of each of the books that you can access totally for free so that you can decide whether this is something that's going to work for you or not. And you can decide that with God. So please take advantage of it. It can't get easier than free. And I want to encourage you to do some sort of a fast, even if it's, a modified fast, okay. But do something to return to God this weekend over this Sabbath. Thank you for listening. God bless you. And I'll see you in the next video.